Hey, good morning, everybody. Let's get the music down. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope today finds you amazing. We have only the two, right? Fergus and Archie are the newest additions here to Rocky Creek Ranch, 2026 lambing season. This Saturday, we have the shearers coming. They're going to be shearing all of the lambs, so they don't need to shear those two, but it'll be fun. It'll be good. Yeah, lots happening. Hope you're doing well. So conversation I want to share with you today, conversation I want to help get some dialogue going on this morning, is the conversation of the approval trap. What are we doing? What are you doing? What happens that causes people to need to want to be approved of? Right? This is who are we performing for? A lot of times, when we talk about making our posts on social media, we want to perform for our audience. We want to show up so that they like the things that we're doing. And that's the conversation that happens when we look at this thing called addiction to approval. Hold on, just got to send a note real quick. Okay. The approval trap. What does it mean for us to want the approval of somebody else? Right? We're dealing with shame. We're dealing with this idea of how do we stand out? Right? How do we make a difference in our world? Right? When's the last time you made a decision and the first thing that you thought about whether you actually wanted it? Right? The first thing you thought about after you made a decision was, is this what I really wanted? Or did I do this? Or was that the thing I did? Or am I going to do it for somebody else's approval? Maybe it was a small thing. Maybe it was a post. Maybe you posted something online. And then spent the next 20 minutes refreshing it, clicking refresh to see if somebody liked it. Maybe it was bigger. Maybe it was something bigger. Maybe you stayed in a job you didn't like. You really didn't like. You stayed in a job you really, 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 really didn't like. Hey, good morning, Beamish. Right? These things that happen in our life on a daily basis that can cause us to really struggle for the approval of other people. Right? Maybe you kept the peace in a relationship just because you didn't want to have to deal with the aftermath. Were you being kind or were you being afraid? We're going to talk today a little bit about this thing called the approval trap. And by the time we're done, you're going to see it everywhere. You're going to even see it in other people and how they act and how they respond. So the approval trap, it's a habit. And when I want you to hear me say habit, not flaw, not character defect. It's the habit, listen carefully, of outsourcing your decisions to an invisible audience. I want you to think about that I want that to land just a little bit harder than it reads. Right? It's a habit. The approval trap is a habit of you outsourcing your decisions to an invisible audience. You don't make them for you, you make them for them. They, right? Well, they say, who's they? I don't know who they are. An audience that most of the time, listen carefully, here's where it even gets worse. An audience that most of the time isn't even paying attention. And we learn this early. This is how we deal with shame so we don't get shamed. We learn this early, painfully early. You raised your hand in class and someone laughed. So you stop raising your hand. Right? You raised your hand in class and someone laughed at you. And so you stopped raising your hand. This is how we start to outsource our decision making for our approval. You had a dream you felt was too big to say out loud, so you kept it small so you could tell it. Don't you have dreams? Yeah, I have dreams. Well, what are they? I'm a little uncomfortable sharing it. So rather than sharing your uncomfortable big story, you downsize it, right? You go through any drive-through. You want to upsize that? You go through life and we want to downsize our dreams. And slowly, without even realizing it, you built a life that was designed to be approved of instead of a life that was actually yours. It's a huge thing. I'm a certified addiction to approval coach. Deal with this regularly in talking to people. So here's something I want you to grasp, something to understand. Hopefully I'll do a well enough job to get the point across. Wanting approval is not weakness. It's human. We're wired for belonging. So over history, being an outcast from the group wasn't just uncomfortable, it was dangerous, right? When you think of way back when, right, when they look for us in archaeological digs, this was part of that community, that culture then. If you were an outcast, you were on your own. You were going to, it was dangerous to be by yourself. So the brain learned, fit in, don't stand out, keep people happy. It happens today. That got wired in thousands, tens of thousands of years ago. And for you to think, well, I'm going to write down a goal and I'm going to break my addiction to approval. I don't care what they say. You ever hear anybody say that? I don't care what they say. They don't matter to me. You may say that, but at a level of maybe awareness or even unawareness, they absolutely matter. The problem that survival is an instinct. It doesn't know the difference between being rejected from the tribe and getting a lukewarm response on your Instagram post. It treats them the same. You need to hear that. Hopefully I'll get this across to you. The problem is that survival is such a strong instinct. The brain only does two things. Will this kill me? Or how fast can I recognize a pattern? That's its default mode network. Everyone's brain. Will this kill me? So when you are put into a survival mode, your brain doesn't really have a level. It only has it's all black or white. There is no gray areas or colored areas when we're talking about the way the brain sees survival. So when you get a lukewarm response on your social media post, you see it as a life-threatening threat. You really do. It treats them the same. Being cast out of your community or that lukewarm response. The brain sees them both exactly the same. And it causes the same situations inside of your body. So you end up living life like a performance. And you forgot who you were before the curtain went up. It's tough. You've got to really become aware of it. And the challenge is to become aware of it is also a survival instinct. To know that you are in a survival situation, addiction to approval is a life-threatening situation because it's going to change your identity. So let me show you where the approval trap shows up most. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. The first place is your method of income. Right? Unless you're making gobs and gobs and gobs of money and you have follow-up money or FU money, follow-up money, keep it G-rated. You just have money where you really don't care. How many of you are in a role or on a path that makes sense on paper because you went to school for it or your parents hoped for it or that's what looks solid when want to show up on LinkedIn. I talk to people all the time who are genuinely successful in every external measure. Good title, good income, good company, and they're hollow on the inside. Because they never actually chose the thing they're doing. They followed that breadcrumb trail of other people's approval. And now they're standing at a destination and wondering why it doesn't feel like home. Here's the tell. If you ever described your job and then immediately waited to see if the other person was impressed, that's the approval trap running your career. If you've ever had to come up with a new title, right? Garbage man, sanitation engineer, same thing, right? I'm in sales. I'm proud to tell somebody I'm in sales. Most people will never tell anybody they're in sales. Well, you're a brain trainer. I'm in sales. My goal is to be able to have a dialogue with you that allows you to buy the idea that you're worth more, that you have more inside of you. And as soon as you buy that, now you have to be released from the story that is your less version of you. That's a sales job. That is a sales job and a half you have to do. So I literally, in helping rewire your brain, teach you how to sell yourself on the highest and best version of you. So the second place that the approval trap exists is in relationships. Now, this one is sneaky. This one, it hides behind good intentions. We tell ourselves we're being flexible, we're being the bigger person, and sometimes that's true, yet sometimes, if we're honest, we're just scared. We just don't want to have to deal with the drama. Scared of the conflict, scared of disappointing anyone. They're scared of disappointing someone that's close to us, somebody we like or love or respect. Scared that if we show up as ourselves, as our real selves, they won't stay, they won't hang around. So we make ourselves smaller. We laugh at things that aren't funny to us. We don't bring up the things that are bothering us for months. We agree, we accommodate, we manage. And then we feel tired and we feel exhausted and we wonder why nobody understands us. And then one day we wake up and realize we've been performing in this relationship for so long, we don't even know what we're thinking actually anymore. So the approval trap in relationships doesn't look like weakness. It looks like flexibility. And that's why it's so hard to catch. The third place the approval trap might show up is the deepest one. It's in your identity. The way you dress, the way you talk, what you'll admit to wanting, what you'll admit to believing, what you'll say out loud, and what you'll keep buried. A lot of us have constructed an identity that is essentially a defense mechanism. We are who we are so that no one can criticize us. We stay vague. And so we can't be wrong. We stay quiet so we can't be judged. We play in the shadows so we don't get seen. And the cost of this, the cost of all of those things to keep your identity safe, to keep your identity approving what you're doing, the cost is your actual life. because you can't fully live a life designed around avoiding disapproval. You're going to have to make an omelet, you're going to have to break some eggs. So we wind up trying to live this life so where we don't get anybody to disapprove of it. And what happens is we never really live our life. We only manage it. You can only maintain it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is exhausting in a way that no amount of sleep can fix. So here's what I'll give you today. Here's my suggestions. The reframe, I think, changes everything. Excuse me. The audience you're performing for, most of the time, doesn't exist. Let me say that again. The audience that you're performing for, most of the time, doesn't even exist. I mean that. In 30 years of doing this, I see that. Psychologists call it the spotlight effect. You know, I have the computer that I use, a Mac, has a little thing up on the right. I'm sure PCs have it as well. But there's a little thing on the top right that if I click on it, I can spotlight. I can go in and type in something and it'll pull up anything associated with that on all of my hard drives that are connected and in the memory of my computer. And so here's what I spotlighted. All of these things, all of the gigabytes of other information, terabytes of other information don't exist. The only thing that exists on my computer when I click spotlight are those things, because that's what it draws my attention to. This is called the spotlight effect. We believe that people are watching us. We believe that people are judging us, tracking our choices far more closely than they actually are, caring than they actually are, giving a rat's butt more than they actually are. And research is clear. People are overwhelmingly preoccupied with themselves. So the person that you're afraid to disappoint, the community you're afraid you're going to not get feedback from, they're busy worrying about their audience and what they think of them. They're not worried about you. They really aren't. I know we don't like to hear that. You're performing a show for a theater full of people who are too busy rehearsing their own monologue to hear yours. Imagine that. Your whole audience, my whole audience, is sitting out there in the theater seats. They paid to get a ticket to watch the show. My audience, your audience paid a ticket to watch the show. And they don't know what's going on because they're too busy sitting in their seats rehearsing their own play for an audience that's not watching them either. So if no one is watching as closely as you think, then you have more room than you've been giving yourself. You actually have way more room than you've been giving yourself. You have room to make a choice that's actually true for you. Room to show up in a way that isn't calculated. Room to stop performing and start living. The approval trap has power as long as you believe the audience is real. When you see it clearly, and when you realize that the whole thing is a story you've been telling yourself, it starts to lose its grip. So I'm going to leave you with one question today, not 10, one question. And I want you to actually use it. I want you to write it down. I'll give it to you a couple of times. Put it in your phone, make it your screensaver, do whatever. Keep this question close and ask yourself. Now, the first time you ask yourself, you may have a surface response. I'd offer you to I'd spend the rest of this week asking yourself this question regularly. Here's a question. If no one I knew would ever find out, would I still make the same choice? If no one I knew would ever find out, would I still make the same choice? That's the question. That question is a flashlight that you can start to use to look around inside of your psyche, inside of your actions, inside of your immediate results. It'll show you exactly where the approval trap is running your life. Because if your answer changes the moment you remove the audience, that's your signal. That's where the work is. That's where your real choices live. So you don't have to blow your life up today. You don't have to make one big dramatic move. You do, though, need to start noticing. Start asking the question, if no one would ever find out, but I still make the same choice? You got to ask that question. Start getting honest about who you're actually living for. Because here's the truth. Here's the reality. You are not here to be palatable. You're not here to make sure you fit into everybody's taste. You were put here to be easily digested and widely approved of. Were you? No, you weren't. You weren't here to be easily digested and widely approved of. You were put here to be you, fully, specifically, unapologetically you. And that's a decision only you can make. So, thanks for being here. We'll have some more conversations about how to rewire, how to become more aware of this story that eats a lot of people's lunch every single day, called addiction to approval. I'm your brain training, addiction to approval, mental toughness coach, Sean G. Murphy. I'll see y'all where? At the next event. Gonna go have a